So my kid sent me this video of a dance that she did with her friend at school. And just to give you a little bit of context, because
Mhm.
context matters, the school that she's in now was like my dream school to go to back in the day when I was growing up as a kid in Dubai. And my parents could never afford it because it was just back in the day. It's still an expensive school, but compared to the way that the schools are in Dubai, it's on the more reasonable side. But back then, like 20, 30 years ago, it was hella expensive. So I was like, when she sent me that video, I forwarded it to my sister and she was asking me some question. I'm like, this school was my dream school. Like it was my dream to be in this school. So I kind of feel like I'm vicariously living through her. And then we were having this conversation about how growing up as poor kids in Dubai really made us appreciate the little things, that we got. Like I remember
Yeah.
we were so poor we couldn't afford Barbie. So we had Barbie's ghetto downgrade called Cindy.
I don't know who's Cindy.
I don't know.
I
It
don't
was
know
all
what
my
we had in
parents could.
Russia, but Cindy wasn't it.
It was all my parents could afford. We didn't have money for Barbie, so we had Cindy. Or like I remember we lived in close proximity, but I remember we never had a pool because back then living in an apartment complex with a pool was like you had some mad money. You got a pool? That was money. Forget gyms. Now
Yeah.
everybody and their mother has a gym in the building and pool. But I remember whenever I would get invited for like pool weekends or like, because the weekends used to be like Thursday, Friday before. So like on a Thursday after school, if we got invited over for a pool day, oh my God, that was like the best day of my life. Anybody who invited me over for a pool day, because back then, like when you're growing up as a poor kid, getting invited to go to the pool, like we had Dubai beaches, which were like Maldives style back in the day. But oh my
Right.
God, a pool? Goddamn. So like, yeah, I was talking to her and I was like, it didn't seem like it back then, but it created so much sort of like appreciation in us for the small things. So that even the smallest of things that for somebody was nothing was such an upgrade for us that I think now sitting here
Yeah.
in life, like it's the little things that I feel so grateful for. Somebody might like, send me like a card. I don't know, that little gesture makes me so it's like, wow, the
Yeah.
person took time to write a card for me, you know? It's those little things. And yeah, I think it goes to like what we were talking about or discussing about what to talk about when it comes to family, when it comes to friendships, or when it comes to like people in your life and like the relationships. Like having a supportive tribe doesn't matter. It could be a few people, you know? It makes such a big difference in the way you go through life on a day-to-day basis. You know what I
No,
mean?
absolutely. Yeah. And you know what's interesting is that something that I always was kind of envious of people about is when you are able to take childhood friends through this journey with you into adulthood. And in my case, like I've moved quite a bit, I've changed countries, I've left states and so on. And then that's like my only kind of stable was really my brother who's seen me from when
Yeah.
I was a kid to like growing up. And so it's like such a blessing to have him. Although we also lived apart for many years, so it's like when he moved to the States, we're like learning more about each other as like
Yeah.
now adults. But that's one thing like I really appreciate about like people who have these like long like childhood friends. Cause I don't think like I'm trying to think of like aside from my family, like maybe like my cousins and my brother, like I don't think there's anybody from my childhood who's a friend that I'm still friends with. I think the longest is like my college friends, like and it's only like a
Yeah.
couple of them, the people that kind of grew with me. But and that also says, who I was and what I was back in the day because I was such a hot mess that I had to like leave all these like I was such a hot mess that I was in hot mess tribes. And as I grew, I was like I can't stay here anymore. Like I need to as I elevated myself, I was like, "Oh, I can't take some of these people with me." But family is like the only stable thing that you do take with hopefully, and that's not always the case, but in my case,
Yeah,
family is stable with
I
me.
think we have similar stories in that sense because I feel like your brother and I were probably like the misfits, and then you and like my sister are like the Cristiano Ronaldos of the family. You guys made
I
it.
don't know about all that, but
I hear you. I do understand where you're coming from because yeah, he's always like that. I mean,
done. 1 second. Is it me or you? There's a lot of background noise. Do you hear?
it just started, but there's no to be here. Let me just continue like that.
Hold on, is it me? Okay, it's gone now. All right, it's gone now.
Um, So
Okay,
yeah,
sorry. Go back to
that's
sorry. It
okay.
was like really
Uh,
disturbing.
no, I didn't hear
So
anything.
yeah, you
So,
can say, but
sorry,
like
I might have
you can
yeah,
say this is where we have similar stories. Start with that, so I
yeah,
can
we
edit
have
those.
similar stories in the sense that, I was the older sister, and then it's like we have a 6-year age gap. So when she came into the picture, the one thing was take care of your sister. That was just from day one, take care of your sister. And I feel like it's always been like that. Like I know for a very, very long time, it was always just like Bahari and Banafshah are together. So we would, even though there was that gap, it never seemed like a gap because whether I was in middle school or high school, yeah, we did in Canada. She went to primary, I was in high school, and so we didn't have that shared experience in Canada, but we had the shared experience of we just always hung out together, you know? And yeah, I wouldn't say, I think I was the hot mess in the rest of like I was around. Do you hear that now? Again? Hold on. Let me take this off. Hear me now?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to try this today to see how this goes.
That actually is even better. The sound is even better.
Okay. So yeah, what I was saying was I was the one who was always wanting to explore different friend groups, but the one constant was always my sister. And regardless of the fact that we if even though we were 6 years apart, especially when my parents kind of decided that, they were going to move back to Dubai, that couple of months or a little bit more than a couple of months, that period of time where right before I moved to Dubai myself, we really spent a lot of time together. So it's always just been us against the world, you know? And there's never been any sort of like competition in that sense because, some siblings have sibling rivalry and it's really, really hardcore. It's just that we always just enjoyed spending time with one another and we were each other's companions. So it just always worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, similar to my brother and I guess. Especially with like our parents going through divorce and like we're having grown up in different countries at one point, but he was always like the older brother. Like, I mean, I'm 5 years, more than 5 years younger than him. He was, and what's interesting in my case is that in Russia, especially my brother, like in our culture, like Dagestanis and all that, like boys were just so like valued back in the day and even still that he was the only boy out of, so I have and my dad is one of nine, so I have a lot of uncles and a lot of and like two aunts and the rest of them uncles. And my brother was the only boy because everybody had girls for like ever. There
Yeah.
was we are a family of just females, and he was the only boy, so he was actually the golden child for a while, and I was just kind of like the black sheep in the family who like wasn't the girly girl. I wasn't like super, just like I wasn't a typical, like, I didn't care for cooking or cleaning or like these cultural things that, a
Yeah.
lot of Dagestani families kind of accustomed to. So he was like the golden child for a while. And then I think I took over the golden child title after I got a divorce because at that point I think my parents were like, oh, all right, well, we're just gonna give up because that's done. Let her just do her. And then I really kind of really just focused on my career and growth and
Yeah.
so on. And then I kind of, earned that golden child title through, trials and
Trying to,
tribulations, and so on. Yeah, but for the longest time, my brother was like the boy in the family, and like the man in the whole family, like in the huge
yeah.
family. So he was like the golden child for a while. And then I kind of took over. So I guess.
I think sibling relationships are very interesting. I'm very, very grateful to have a sister who I'm so close with. And I never understood, like I knew a lot of people who had siblings and they were some just hated each other or some used to like tell on each other to their parents. And I never got that. Like it was always me and her. It's not like we got into a lot of like, nonsense, but this thought of like, let me throw my sister under the bus so that I get in good with my parents was never a sort of like reality for me. It was always us against, not our parents, us against the world. It's just the two of us, and we like to go out together. We have a very similar sense of humor. I think when people meet us, they first of all, they don't realize there's such a big age gap between the two of us. And we have a lot of mannerisms, but we're also very, very, very different people. But one thing that was always just drilled into us by our parents is you always have to have each other's back. Come hell or high water, that's your sister. You got to have each other's back. and you got to always share. So there's never a sense competition. I wouldn't say it was any type of competition between us, to be quite honest with you. There wasn't that sense of like rivalry. It was just always, okay, if you're doing good or if I'm doing good, we're going to make sure that we're both doing good together, you know? And I think that's really,
Yeah.
really important because as you get older, you go through life and stuff happens and you got to take care of each other. You know, when they say sharing is caring, I think when I think about my relationship with my sister, it's always been like that. You know, when I was on the come up, let's say, when I graduated from university and I first moved to Dubai, I remember whenever we used to travel, I'd be like, "Hey, you're still in school, like, you know, I'm gonna book the hotel. Don't worry about it." Or like I was at like that older sister, and it was such a sense of pride, you know, to be able to like take care of my sister that way.
Yeah.
And then, you know, life happens and I got married and, you know, I think that's what Ruslan and I have in common. We have that storyline and plot where we have similarities in the way that we kind of left the reservation for a little bit to find ourselves. And then, you know, during the whole single mom thing, like I'm lucky I have a sister if I ever need anything, and need doesn't necessarily need to be on a financial realm. You know what I mean? Just to have somebody there who you know this person's got me, that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, family is there are I mean, I think I'm really lucky, I would have to say, to have friends like you and just like a handful of others that I can be myself with. But outside of my little group of friends, like my family is the only place where I can just be my true self. You know what I mean? Like just fall apart. I don't have nothing to show for, you know what I mean? Moments where you can, that's what family is for, you know what I mean? And like, and the non-judgment space, like, especially like my brother, he's very non-judgmental. He's like I give him that. He is super non-judgmental. Like he will never use things against you. Like he's just a legitimate, good-hearted person, you know? And like so
Yeah.
like I knew I could come to him with anything. Even to this point, you know what I mean? He will never judge. Like I mean I admire that about him because I judge. you know? You know, to be honest, I'm not as good as him in that sense. You know, but he is genuinely, you know, and I think that's so rare and I think it's so important to have that. And it's yeah, and like it's I yeah, I know a lot of people who don't have those relationship with their siblings and it is that rivalry. And I'm like, but why? They're the only ride or die, truly ride or die that you have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're lucky if you have friends like that. And I mean, I'm one of those people, like I'm super lucky in that. But you know, like it's at the end of the day, like your family is everything.
I think we come from cultural backgrounds where family is everything and that tightness, and no matter what the trauma in the family, no matter what the ups are, what the downs
Yeah.
are, who's broken a plate over whose head, metaphorically speaking, or sometimes they wish they could do it in
Mhm.
real life. The ups and the downs and everything in between. Um, there is that sense of like, no, we got you, we got each other, and I can definitely say it's the same thing. You know, there have been lots of times in our family life where things have been really, really down, but nobody ever said, "Hey, that's it, I'm tapping out." You know, like things haven't always been perfect, but when it comes down to holding each other down and having each other's back, even through the most difficult of times, it's just the way it is because we had parents who were like that. You know, they always went above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that we were good. So when I think about it from a parenting perspective, I never measured how much my parents loved me by the material possessions that they got me. I measured their love in everything that they were able to give me outside of that. I had a great roof over my head, even if that roof was not in a fantastic, you know, place because that's all they could afford, you know, as new immigrants off the boat coming from Iran to Dubai. But they worked really, really hard to be able to get us to where we are, or even send us to school, or to be able to buy a car, or maybe perhaps save up enough to like put me in piano classes, or just, you know, to take us shopping at the mall. Those things
Mhm.
came with a lot of efforts. And when I look back at it now, I have nothing but appreciation. When you're in it, sometimes it's hard to understand our parents. And I think we all go through that
Mhm.
phase where we end up blaming our parents for a lot of things that happen to us because we don't have the wisdom of our age to kind of be like, okay, you know, you didn't really know what you were doing. And I always say that to people, like, it wasn't until I became a parent myself when I realized how hard it is to be a parent. And if you want to be a good parent, there's a lot you have to learn. There's a lot of messing up. There's a lot of sacrifices, and you're going to lose your shit a lot along the way. And I'm sure that although we had the same experience as siblings, we also had different experiences. I mean, we had the same parents, but they didn't always parent us in the same way. So I think perhaps you and your brother can also relate to that.
Yeah, there's a saying, I think I told you the other day, I forget how it's basically like no child has the same parent. Like no sibling, I guess, has the same parent in the household. And I see it, I heard and I was like, that is so true because I see how like just observing the relationship that my mom has with my brother, now that we're all in the same like vicinity of each other, like just a few miles away, and we spend a lot more time together. And I observe how she is with him and how she is with me. It's not good or bad. It's just different. Like it's a very different relationship that she has with my brother that she has with me. And I don't know, it's and same with my dad. Like it's there's a big distinction. And it's just interesting to observe. Like I feel like in my mom's mind, the way I see her treat my brother, as he's like the baby of the family, even though he's a grown man, but he's still treated as like, you know what I mean? Versus I'm like, where's my, whatever it is, like the attention and the certain things. But it's like my mom still, he's the firstborn. And maybe because he's a boy and moms and boys usually have like it's different kind of connections than girls and moms and their girls or whatever. But it's really interesting to observe. And it's a very good relationship that we have with our mom, both of us. But it's a very unique thing to observe now that I'm older, to see how she is different with him than she is with me.
I mean, that was her firstborn, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
forget being the firstborn son, forget being the firstborn. It's just that imagine this person went from, and she probably got married when she was really young. Yeah,
Yeah.
she went from just being herself to then all of a sudden responsible for keeping this child alive. That's
Yeah.
intimidating. I remember when I couldn't, I was too scared to wash my kid the first couple of months. I was literally scared.
Imagine.
I'm gonna like it's like a football in my hand, it's slippery. It's gonna just like I'm gonna slide out and I'm gonna drop her, or I'm gonna like use too much soap, or I was scared. My mom had to help me. And then on top of that, like, the smallest thing, you're just like you're worried about it. But I remember now, now compared to like back then, before, if something fell on the floor, no, I need to sanitize it. Now, like, yeah, it's okay. 5-second rule is good for you. Like, go for it. Yeah, do it, Or just um there's no matter how many books that you read, you're never going to be prepared for what life throws at you. You're never going to be prepared. The first time your kid ever gets really, really sick, and my heart goes out to every parent who have to go through that with their kid, it's the most devastating feeling in the world because you have this child who is struggling and who's suffering, and you don't know what to do, and you have to trust the practitioners to take care of the child and make the child better. And you
Yeah.
suffer because your child is suffering, and you have to deal with all those emotions. So there's no matter how many books there are, no matter how much the babushkas come and tell you, you got to do this and you got to do that. It's just you and that child. And then you also have to kind of figure out, how am I going to be a good mom, because that's what everybody's expecting of me. But then I also have to be somebody's wife, and then I also have to keep everything together in the household, and I also have to look good and take care of myself. And then if you're in that situation where you have to work as well, it's a lot. So I can completely understand how the journey of the parents with the firstborn and the children that come after, because my parents love my sister and I equally, but the relationships that we have is very, very different. We joke and we laugh and stuff, but I'm a little bit more formal. Even when I speak Farsi, there's just certain formalities that I'll have with my parents, and my sister does not, because she came 6 years later. They'd had like 6 years of like research and development. So when she came,
Basically.
it's like, okay, yeah. And the one
Oh.
thing that I have to tell you that stands out the most was education. You need to go to university. You have to go to university. University, university, university. It was just non-negotiable. But with because I think it's similar in the U.S. There's colleges and there's universities. In Canada, it's like that. Like it was no, it's not just you can't just go to a community college. You have to get a university degree. But when it was with her, I was like, no, okay, as long as you get a degree, Very good. So yeah, that's a
Ah.
distinction. I don't know if it was the same thing in your household, but yeah.
Yeah, no, for me, so it's interesting because as you're speaking, it was almost a little bit different because because I think I don't know, now I'm literally just reflecting on this in this moment, but I was usually the one. My mom was like university, 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 and I think because it goes back to that cultural piece that boys are gonna be fine. Boys can start a business, and that was like the whole, whatever, the old school thinking that we grew up with. And it's like, well, my brother's gonna take over my dad's business at that time, and like he's fine, you know what I mean? Like versus for me, it's like my mom, and I guess it also depends on where my mom was at her stage of her life because they were divorced. She and then I think she just wanted me to make sure that I'm as independent as I possibly can be, so that if I do end up getting divorced in the future, God forbid, I'm never reliant on like a man. And I think that was her whole push. So then for me, I was the academic child. Like I was pushed to university so hard, and it took me like 6 years to get my bachelor's, but I did it after all. And I think that was a really big push from my mom. My dad, not so much, but yeah. So it's interesting because I think it was a little bit the opposite, that I was the one who was pushed to do all these things. But again, it was mainly coming from my mom because of the experiences she had, and she wanted to make sure that I don't fall into the same experiences.
I
So
mean,
she tried to build me up, you know.
I can I can understand the similarities because the reason my mom probably or both my parents pushed me to get a university degree because I'm the first person in our family who got a university degree, you know?
Okay,
Both
well, yeah,
sides.
yeah,
So it was a big deal for them.
yeah,
And so like that was just something for them to like, and also leaving Iran, coming to Dubai, taking us from Dubai to Canada. This was, that immigrant journey. So if
yeah.
they schlepped us from all around, from one end of the world to the other, it was like, no, you got yourself a Canadian passport. Now you're going to get yourself a Canadian education. So, in the mild mind of a teenager, you don't really sit and think about what that journey looks like. But now, as a 45-year-old who has a 12-year-old in school, and okay, I didn't get up to go from Iran to Dubai, from Dubai to Vancouver, but I have gone from Dubai to Abu Dhabi to work,
Mhm,
to be able to earn a living, to be able to take care of all of my kids' financial responsibilities and life's financial responsibilities. So when you do that, and if you choose to be responsible, and this is one thing that I'm so grateful that my parents really embedded into us, and I'm so appreciative of that because I think it really keeps my sister and I very humble no matter how far we've come in life. That sense of responsibility is something that you either are born with it and it's embedded into you, or you either have it or you don't. You have to be taught it, and you have to be taught it the right way. I've been irresponsible with myself as a person, but at this point, I can't sit and say I'm an irresponsible parent because if I have to think about a dollar, I'm always going to think about how am I going to put this for my family as opposed to putting it for myself. And that's just something I saw growing up between both my
mhm,
parents, right? Working. One was earning, one was the homemaker, and she was an amazing homemaker. And, both of them had to struggle and hustle. So that sense of responsibility we saw and we kind of took with us into our lives. And when you hold on to that, it just kind of like grows into who you are as a person because I take the responsibility of my friends also very seriously. So to go back to what you were saying with regards to friends that I've had lifelong, I'm still friends with the girls I went to grade 10 with. Now, we don't see each other every year, but we have a chat group. And these are girls, some of them maybe since grade 1, but most of them we all came together or found each other again in grade 10. And every birthday, whoever remembers a birthday reminds the other one, and we're wishing each other happy birthday. So, although I might not be somebody who's going to have a regular coffee, but in that sense, it's the same thing with our relationship, right? We live on two different continents, but we're constantly in touch because it's important for me to know how you're doing. And it's the same thing with you. I appreciate that. And that comes to the topic of responsibility. We're not forced to maintain a long distance friendship because
yeah,
friendships, like any kind of relationship, take a lot of work and effort, right? but we choose to
Yeah.
actively participate with no burden on of like, oh no, you have to keep in touch. No, it's very, very natural, but it's because we
Yeah.
both naturally feel responsible for another because we genuinely care about each other. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
comes from responsibility, which I feel like your family and my family probably instilled in us from a very young age.
Yeah, and I think like also as you're speaking, I think this the immigrant parent story I think what they try to do is just embed this financial stability, which is why they're everything that they do is like we want to make sure our child has the finances. Like I think that's a big thing for a
Yeah,
lot of immigrant parents because that's why they usually leave the country of origin for many other factors, but mainly is to build a life. So it's like they've made the sacrifice. You better make something out of yourself.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like you better make something out of yourself. And 10, 20, 20 years ago, so the success looked like you go to school, you graduate, you get a degree, and you get a stable job. And I think that's what our parents knew. So they did the best that they knew what to, they did the best that they could with what they had at the moment. And that was the definition of success, especially for immigrant parents.
yeah,
Because when I was growing up in Russia, definition of success from my dad's perspective is like get married, have children, be a good wife.
yeah.
Like that's it. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think it is an immigrant experience to make sure you're financially stable and successful, quote unquote, in the whatever success looks like in that period of time.
Speaking of financial security in the realm of like, on a tangent, in the realm of like not just family, but also friendships, I think once you get to this point, wherein you're like, I'm not saying I'm an old lady, but I'm at the midpoint of life. Now, to me, I don't feel old. But if you were to think about it from a age perspective, smack in the middle of it, right? God willing, I'll have another 45 years of life to have lots of like great stories. But I think this sense of financial security plays such a fundamental role in shaping you, especially if you're somebody who's grown up with not always having not that there isn't financial security. It's a sense that the means your parents might not always have had the means to be able to provide that, not that they didn't want to. So you always try and I don't know what your experience was, but it was always you got to save, you got to save, you got to save, savings are so
Yep.
important. And that's been something that's been like drilled into me from a very, very young age. But the thing is that sometimes when you grow up with friends who haven't had the same experience because they've always had abundance from a financial perspective, sometimes it's difficult to kind of relate to friends who've never had that struggle. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
walking into a shop and being able to buy whatever it is without having to look at the price tag versus you walking into the same shop and you know that you don't have the means, so you have to look at the price tag, right? So it's a different experience. And I think when I first moved back to Dubai, it was a very, very different experience for me because when I went to Canada, it was that completely that immigrant thing. And because I was just working minimum wage, purchasing power was very, very different. But then when I moved back to Dubai, our financial means as a family had changed because of all of the hard work and effort, right? You finally like, "Oh, I made it. So, but when I came to Dubai and I started working, my purchasing power was different. So I started to change the relationship that I had with money. Not saying that I wanted to be with people, because there's some people who just want to be with other people for the sake of that those people are rich and wealthy and it's that association. It was never like that
Yeah.
for me. For me, it was more like I want to be with people who have this hustle mentality and who are working and are earning, and I want to earn like them because I just want to be successful for myself. My idea of success was I work so hard and I earn and I go and buy whatever I want and show my parents that the investment that they made in me and my education and my passport was me having the purchasing power to do it for myself. So that was again
Mm-hmm.
something that as an immigrant family and as an immigrant child was always embedded, that value for money, which I think is something that's changed nowadays. I don't think it's the same.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's that's also why we got along and we hit it off because we've both been where we don't have money, then we have some money, then we don't have money. Then, it's like always back and forth. So I think we're both like humble enough to know. And we both were always like mindful, but it's time we like the nicer things in life, but also like I remember when we'd go out, it wasn't that, because some groups in Dubai you go out with and you're like, you can't be like, I can't afford to do all of this. You know what I'm saying? Versus with you, was like, we need to limit our intake today of purchasing drinks or food or whatever it is. So let's go to this place and say, so it was a little bit more because like it was just a little bit more humbling for us, I guess, together. So I think that's why we got along as well. Like I never felt like I couldn't tell you something, although like I think everybody enjoys nicer things in life, but I think just being mindful of, my purchasing power and so on at different stages in my life. I think that's what, you know what I'm saying? Because I've seen a lot of people, like I've been in other groups in Dubai and it's like, I can't even, I'm not part of this group. Like I'm not at that, I don't have that purchasing power. I'm not that person. I don't fit into that circle. It's not me. It's not my life. Like I can't,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
but it's okay. People who wanna be friends with you shouldn't be friends with you based on how much money you have in your bank account or where you live. Now, um, I understand that everybody has their own purchasing means. Look, I probably compared to everybody that I know, I'm the one with the least amount of purchasing power, not because I don't earn well, it's because everything I earn has to go into taking care of the little family I have for myself, right? And but still, even during the times that we became friends, or even the friends that I've always had in life, I've never necessarily wanted to rub elbows with people just because they were rich and famous and wealthy. No, to me, if you're a good person, that really, really matters, right? And I genuinely have
Yeah.
never wanted to be friends with girls who are the type of girls who, when you walk into a room, they're just looking at you and seeing what you're wearing and what you're carrying. Girl, bye. And I think, remember,
Yeah.
like you introduced me to a girl, and she made this comment about the type of dude that she date, and I was just like, "All right, sister, this is the last time we're gonna
Yeah.
be hanging,"
Ah, I know. Yeah. We're
So
not friends with those girls. Yeah.
the thing, I don't know. I was always raised by my father not to um be a gold digger.
Yeah.
So, and listen, hey, power to you. If that's your job, that's you. To me, it comes with, like, I don't know. I just always felt like, um if I can work hard, and if I, and again, I'm not comparing it to, oh, I'm a woman, like feminine. No, no. If I, for just me, if I can work hard and if I can earn, and with whatever I've earned, I can go and do whatever it is that I want to do for myself, whether it is, invest in a property, buy a really nice bag, go on a nice holiday, help somebody out. Maybe there's a friend who needs $1,000 or dirhams or something. Help a friend out. If I have the purchasing power to do that, why not? To me, um, abundance doesn't mean showing people all of the expensive things that you own and all of the expensive holidays that you know. If you have been blessed with abundance, and if you can help another person, I say parent because I know other single moms and we always have these kind of conversations, but like, if you can help somebody out, my God, that's like, to me, that's the most rewarding thing. Imagine just giving somebody, not because they asked you. Imagine just giving somebody $100 tip just because you can feel that this person's struggling. You might change their life with that $100, and $100 is probably maybe a meal for someone, right? So I don't know. It was never.
Yeah.
I was never. Those people were never my tribe. Those types of people were never
Yeah.
my tribe.
Yeah, no, same here. And, and I've also like observed how my mentality changed. Cause I think when you go from like not having a lot of money to then having some money to then you like trying to figure out who you are. And I think we talked about in one of the episodes, like at first in Dubai, being married and all that, I wanted to like keep up with the Joneses and like also with my ex-in-laws, it was always about like brands and stuff like that. So it was very much like you want to have all these brand things. And now, although I have more money than I ever did in my life, I'm like, I could never spend money on a bag that's like worth X amount of money. I'm like, no, like now I'm like, I need to invest. Like that's where I'm at. Like all like anything extra I have, it's like, how can I invest it? Like I cannot even imagine. Like I can't even imagine. And it's a person. I think this goes back to like I forget the guy's name, but he talks about like what's your rich life? And for me, a rich life is stability, security. It's not what's it called? It's not the bags and the cars and so on. Like to me, it's like I want the experience of like a life where I wake up, I'm healthy, I can have a, like they say, like have a sit by the pool on a Tuesday afternoon, and so on. So it's like it's that freedom, and so that's definitely has changed. But I also think that as a society, we're also shifting away from like the fancy bling bling towards like wealth looks very different than it did even 10 years ago. You know
Really,
what I'm
you think so?
saying?
You think so? I don't know.
I
I
think
feel
so.
look, first of all, I
Well,
think
maybe not in Dubai.
no, I think, but
You know, Dubai.
when I see a lot, because I try and stay on. I've always been interested by pop culture and trending society and stuff like that. It's just, it's something that like I enjoy delving into every once in a while. Um, I think if it's something that you work hard for, again, if you've been blessed with abundance and wealth, if do whatever it is that you want to do, right? If it makes you happy dressing a certain way, no, hey, power to you. I respect that. If you
Yeah,
if that's what you love, but for me, I think where it's something that's not my cup of tea is I don't like people trying to overtly show so much that they spent this amount of money on this material possession. If you have that, that's great. You don't need to showcase it for other people, right? And I think this is why I would say I'm disagreeing with you in the sense that because we live in such a show and tell culture, because we have so much social media at our disposal, and because everybody's capturing every freaking moment of their time, if you really think about it, people are either overtly just out there showing you what material possessions they have, or they're showing you the lifestyle that they can afford, you know? Because
yeah,
let's be honest. If somebody is in, let's say, the healthcare or wellness industry, and they're always going on these destination holidays where they're doing all these fancy things, that they're eating these healthy foods, and they're all wellness is not cheap, right? If you want to
true,
take
true. It's
care
just a
of your
different show off, right?
yeah. So there are, it's just I don't like that uber showing off thing because I always think about it in this way. I was that person, and sometimes I'm not going to lie a bit. You know that like from December I've been struggling to find work, right? I've thank thank God that I've have a support system that has allowed me to stay keep my head up above water, but a lot of people don't have that, you know? And sometimes I feel
Yeah.
like it's very distasteful to cry. It's kind of like lavishly flaunt everything when you never know that person might not have enough money to pay their bills. Like, excuse me, when this whole conflict thing happened, a lot of people chose to leave, and I understand because they didn't know what was going on, and for them, what made sense was to leave. So a lot of the people who were their support systems, whether it was the nannies or whether it was the housekeepers or drivers, they suddenly found themselves without any source of like income. And I remember um, I have a live-in nanny. Again, another one of the privileges that I get to have by working hard and living in a place like Dubai where it's way more affordable than to get an au pair elsewhere. She was telling me that there's a lady, a Filipino lady, who the family she was working with, they decided to leave, and she was still here. Her visa was still active, but she had no money. She had no money to be able to afford food, right? So for me, I was like, okay, let's just give her some money. I'm struggling myself,
Mm,
but I just couldn't sit here in good conscience. And I'm not saying this to make myself. No, it's not about put a saint knighthood or sainthood or whatever. It's just the fact that you never know somebody's struggle. You never know if somebody has money to eat, right? So for me,
yeah,
when you're showcasing that and like posting all the stuff, hey, that's great. Respect to that. But sometimes people will look at that and two things might happen. They might feel so bad that they can't have that life no matter how hard they work, or it could impact them in another way. And sometimes I feel like it's maybe a little bit unhealthy in the sense that they become so obsessed with that type of lifestyle where they would sell their souls to have that type of lifestyle. So then they can go and post and show that, and you don't know how that money is coming and if it's really earned or if it's on credit or so on and so forth. So I don't know. In that sense of
yeah,
it, I always feel like nowadays, I think even if you have abundance, keep it for yourself because you never know the kind of like energy that might be coming at you when you showcase it.
100%. What's the famous saying? Keep three things private: your finances, your love life, and your next move, right? Because people just be hating. And to bring us full circle back to our siblings conversation, is that this is where my brother and I are completely opposite, because I'm a person that will shop in like a hoodie and sweatpants from like H&M and won't even care. And he's like decked out in like brands, and like our values are so different. And I'm like, how did were we raised by the same parents? And yet I am so different financially speaking. And he's more of like, he needs that stuff. Like, cause it's for him. He loves to feel like good. Like it's really, I mean, I've learned that it's just, he just wants, he works hard for these things, and he buys them because he can. And for me, I'm like, I'll go on vacation before I spend money on like, whatever brand and stuff like that. So it's just interesting
Yeah, but
how,
you gotta
again,
admit, your brother's a good looking dude, man.
he's a good looking guy, and he's got a lot of
No.
style. Like you wouldn't know we're siblings. I'm like, I'll drive my Toyota until the wheels fall off. He's like, he changes a car every 2 years, you know what I mean? So like, we're complete opposites on how we function.
But he
But he
also
is, yeah,
spent
he's
most
way
of
more
the
stylish than I am.
he spent most of his life in Russia, right? So this whole new
Yeah, yeah.
American game is new to him, and I understand
Yep.
that because it's very similar to like Persian culture, right? Maintaining that symbol status is very much embedded. It's like look at your history, look at like everything that happened. So when
Yeah.
kind of like communism left and all of that was like out of the way, and like people could breathe a little bit more, and when wealth started to develop, and people could afford to have that good life, it's something I see it with like even the Russians that live in my community, right? Man, the girls
Mhm.
look good.
Oh yeah, the Russians in Dubai
365
are, yeah.
days a year. And there's some MILFs who live in this neighborhood. I'm just like, girls,
Yeah.
what do you do? And like even the men, they like to there is that starter pack, the Russian dude who just moved to
Sorry.
Dubai starter pack. But it's a cultural thing. Like, yeah, compared to
Yeah.
a lot of Iranians, yeah, I'm the one. I get what you mean. Like, I do like to take care of myself as well, but I find myself, it's interesting. Again, going back to the parent thing, those things which I used to once spend money on myself, now it's like I'm always like for my kid, no, we got to do this for you and we got to do that for you. And I'm always like, you can't walk out of the house looking like this. You got my name on you. They're gonna be like, who's your mama? How did they let you walk out of the house with hair looking like that? So I get it. It's like your kid's a representation of you, right? So you want them to be well mannered and polite, but you also, I'm not saying like walk out with like a Louis Vuitton at 12 years old. I mean, no judgment if that's what you want to do for your kid. Hey, do it. Inshallah, if I get to that point where I can, why not? But the thing is just like, it comes with your the realm in which you grew up in. And if that was his reality for a very, very long period of time, it makes sense where even if he's living in a totally different complement, that's what he continent, that's what he's aspiring to still. And I respect that. I really, really do
Yeah.
respect that because you have to put a lot of effort into it. Sometimes I'm just like, man, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
comfort comes first.
Listen, yeah. I mean, listen, and he jokes to me about it too. He'd be like, why are you always in this hoodie? I'm like, like he gives me shit about it. It's so funny because I mean, he's non-judgmental and like on a deeper level, of course, but he will give me shit. He'd be like, why don't you go, like, he was like, you have the money. Why don't you go shopping? I like it. I like my H&M hoodie, like we'll meet up for like coffee or whatever and stuff like that. But I'm like, just like, yeah, and yeah, I admire people who can put themselves together, who like, especially the females. I'm like, more power to you. Maybe I work too much. Maybe that's my excuse. But yeah, this is where I'm very not Russian in this way, because I'm just like, I clean up really nicely, but it's rare that you're gonna catch me like looking fab.
You used to
you
dress
know?
up a lot when we were in Dubai as well. I think it also has to do with
Yeah,
social environment. Yeah, I'm also
for
always
sure.
in
America
chill.
is very different. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always in chill vibes as well. But the random nights where my sister and I go out, hell, I'm gonna show up like the MILF
Yeah.
that I am. Yummy mummies
Uh,
out. So no, because I like to look. There's I think We all have different sides to us. So it just depends on what season of that side to us that we are,
Yeah.
and how much effort goes into it. There are some women who are really, really into that, and I respect them, man. Always having a blowout,
Mhm.
always having your I can't. I
Yeah.
honestly like I cannot imagine what it would be like to put foundation on every day. I would like rather slit my wrists, you know? But there are some women
I know.
who freaking it's a canvas and power to
They
you.
love it.
They love it. I
Yeah.
respect it. That's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Even
I agreed.
my kid's into, like, the nails now, and she's like,
Yeah.
she'll put the nails on, like, this stick-on nails, and then she'll be like,
Yeah, yeah.
"What is this?" But then I'm like, "Okay, yeah, so I'm basically your sugar mama because I had to pay for this for you to be able to, like, walk around like this and pick up stuff like this," you know? So,
I love it.
it just, but again, it goes back to how you were raised. So I'm sure when he was younger, this is what he picked up from your father. And then,
Yeah.
obviously his mom, your mom being the first boy and, like, being her first kid, you just always want to make sure that kid is always matchy matchy. I'm sure you guys have photos in your album when you're both dressed exactly alike or like similar and you're just posing next to each other. We all have that because that's what our parents wanted to do for us. If they didn't have that themselves, they wanted to upgrade us. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We grew up in cultures that always wanted us to upgrade, whether it was materially, whether it was socioeconomically, whether it was educationally, whether it was spiritually. We were just always taught that this is not enough. You need to elevate yourself. So you guys just
And
have
thank God for that.
you guys are just on different Super Mario levels of elevation.
100%. And yeah, thank God for growing up the way we did. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think we're so lucky and so blessed.
I
So,
think so too. And look, I think that, I haven't met your brother. You've definitely met my sister because that's how we became friends. But when I look at the relationship that you have with him, and I look at the relationship that my sister and I have, we're so lucky. We're so, so lucky because there are a lot of people who don't even have siblings,
yeah.
or there are a lot of people who have siblings and they're not as close. There are a lot of people who have siblings who don't even live on the same continent as each other, right? So, I think we've been really, really blessed that we've come from families that are so tight knit that we've been taught that come hell or high water, always have each other's backs, always take care of each other. And there's something to be said about that.
Absolutely. And now we need to get Afra a sibling.
Brother Ruslan! Then 2, 3 years to
Let's keep it in
Dagestan.
the family. Let's just become family. Let's become family, Bahar, okay? Like it's I feel like that's the next step, okay? We're already like sisters. Let's just become
So
true
I'm gonna send
sisters-in-law.
I'm gonna send my kid 2 to 3 years to Dagestan and forget.
There you go. That's it.